I didn't have anything to look forward to. I had lost I didn't have a car, so I couldn't get to anywhere to work. Work would have been hard. I would have had to ride the bus, which you would have to have money for to begin with. Mm-hmm. And the only thing that came easy was drugs.
Welcome everyone, and this is Me to We Productions, where we share with you the recovery stories of others so that you may create your own. If you would like to follow Recover Out Loud, go to our website at recoveroutloudinc.com, and this is where you'll find most of our events and our gatherings. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and if you like what you see, give us a thumbs up. So tonight, we're going to get loud here with my buddy John Anderson. And I've known John now for, about 5 years?
Yeah.
And I think I actually met you in prison.
Yeah, so we've known each other for 6.5 years.
6.5 years.
6.5 years.
It's been a good 6.5 years.
It's been a bit longer than 5.
So my first question I want to ask you is, why did you want to be here tonight?
I've been in recovery for 7 years, and I have a story to tell that's going to help people, and God's put me here for that purpose. I can't imagine that I shouldn't share it. So
this is true. I totally agree with you. I think you got a great story. I've got to hear it a lot of times, and I know people will benefit from hearing what you have to say. So let's go ahead and kind of dive back into all this, into your addiction and stories, things like that. And they say environment has a lot to do with addiction. But what was your environment like?
I was raised in church my whole life, believe it or not. From the time I was a kid, even when I was like 5 years old, I knew I was going to be a preacher when I grew up. Uh-huh. So I always had that passion in my heart. So I had a good upbringing. My parents were awesome. I didn't have any trauma.
So no trauma, good upbringing, raised in a church.
Yeah.
So doing pretty well there.
Yeah.
Anything with your dad? I mean, everything good there too?
Yeah. My mom was in church my whole life. My dad, I guess, got saved and when I was 10 years old. Uh-huh. Really, it's just church. I remember church, and they worked, and we weren't rich, but we were okay. We lived in a nice home, and I always had nice clothes.
Okay. So what do you think got you into drugs?
Acceptance, I guess. So I always felt accepted in the church. Like I've always known that I fit in there.
Even at a young age?
Even at a young age, God has gifted me in certain areas, and I've always felt that calling, and I've always fit in there. But when you're young, you don't think about you don't think about how this is going to affect your life if you want to be accepted outside of the church.
Okay.
You want to find a place to fit in everywhere.
Right.
When you go to school, like my church isn't at school, and I just was probably looking for acceptance.
So acceptance from like your peers, like your age group?
Yes, I never really knew how well I fit in outside of the church.
Okay. And I like this because I agree with you. I know in my own story, acceptance was huge. It maybe more attention for me than acceptance, because I think I lacked a lot of attention because I lost my father, lost all my friends in a 6-month period, and that's really what got me into using. Did you like the way drugs made you feel?
Yeah, but not at first. So the first thing most people start with is like smoking weed. Mm-hmm. And I hated the way I felt when I smoked weed. It freaked me out. It'd give me anxiety, but I would smoke it on a regular basis just because it was available to fit in with the people around me, I guess. I don't know why I did it when I hated it so much.
Right.
But once I got into harder drugs, pain pills, meth, benzos, yes, I liked how those made me feel.
Did you ever have to be like the life of the party?
I not generally, but I'd sit at a party quietly, but I would draw a lot of attention that way, and people would want to speak to me. I think part of it was maybe just because they wanted to know that I accepted them, honestly.
Okay.
But I didn't feel that way at the time. You know?
Yes, yeah.
I was more just, shy, if anything.
So when did you know that you had an issue, or maybe you were an addict? Did you have any consequences?
Okay, so I think I got a story to tell about that. The first
Sure.
time I really knew that I had an issue, I went to the gas station right next to my house, and this guy I knew from church invited me to church, and this was a Saturday night, and I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll go, and I told him where I lived. I had no intentions of going. Like, I wasn't going to be home when he showed up. I just wanted to be, nice, so I told the guy to go. Well, the next day, come church time, I'm asleep on my couch, not even thinking that he's coming. I totally forgot. So the guy knocks on his door, and when I answer, I realize now I've got to go because I told him I would. So I go into this church, and as they're doing the worship, this voice starts speaking in my head, and all I keep hearing over and over is, today is the day of repentance. Today is the day to turn your life around. And I'm trying to shake it off, like, shut up,
Right.
Like, get away from me. And then the pastor stands up and he says, today's the day of repentance. Today's the day of turn your life around. The same exact phrase that was going on in my head. So I ran down to the altar. I get on my knees, and immediately I get surrounded by a bunch of, on fire for Jesus Christians, and it's awesome that they want to pray for me. But at the time, it freaked me out.
Sure.
Now I'm like, what did I get up here for? I can't believe now I'm in trouble because I'm stuck. But then that same voice starts speaking to me again, and I hear, if you don't turn your life around today, you won't have another chance. And it keeps repeating in my head, and then the pastor's wife stands up and she says, God just told someone if they don't turn their life around today, they won't have another chance. So I broke. I didn't care if they were praying. I just started bawling. Like, I knew God had reached, and I had struggled. I'd been struggling a lot. I'd been drinking all the time and taking pain pills, and I didn't know how to get away from it, but I felt like God reached down and he was going to do something.
Okay.
So I gave in. I gave to him, And I went home that night, and my friend who I was drinking with all the time came over. And we'd go drinking and driving, and drinking beer while we were running around. And we did this almost every night. But not that night. I refused. I said, I just gave my life to Jesus. I am not doing this. I'm not going to do it. And he called me every name in the book. And it's okay. Like, I probably did something like that to somebody else, but I refused. Well, that night he smashed his truck into a tree, and it caved in the whole passenger side of the truck. I would have died.
Yes.
Like, God reached down and saved my life that night. But I was getting high and drunk again 3 days later, knowing that God did that. That's when, looking back, that's when I had to have realized that I have an issue.
That's a pretty cool story. So knowing that, so you had this really powerful spiritual experience.
Yes.
And even so, you're what, like 16, 17 here?
No, I'm 19 years old.
You're 19 years old. So at a young age, that's a pretty powerful experience.
Yeah.
But to have that experience, and then 3 days later to go back out, how did that feel in that moment?
The going back out?
Yeah.
Hopeless. That's all it was.
Did you feel like you had a choice there?
No, I didn't have anything to look forward to. I had lost I didn't have a car, so I couldn't get to anywhere to work. Work would have been hard. I would have had to ride the bus, which you would have to have money for to begin with. Mm-hmm. And the only thing that came easy was drugs.
Gotcha.
Work and stability didn't come easy. There was work you had to put in for it, and I wasn't mentally ready to put in that work.
So basically, what I hear you saying is you didn't have the tools to be an adult.
Yeah.
You're a 19-year-old kid, and you don't have a car. You can't make it to work. You're having these powerful experiences, but yet some way the one thing you could always turn to that was always going to be there was the drugs.
Yeah.
Yes, and at this point in time, was you addicted?
Physically, no. It was a lifestyle at this point, and I may have had I was addicted to nicotine. I may have had a very light addiction, but not really. I could have walked away. Like, I went to jail a few different times for a few weeks for different things, and I never had to go through withdrawals at that point. So I wasn't really physically addicted.
What was you using?
Alcohol, pain pills, benzos, Quercetin.
Quercetin. Cough
syrup.
Yeah.
I'd take a box of that a night, almost every night, if I wasn't drinking. That was the word. I don't know why. I'm not sure what. I mean, I loved it back then. It was just my thing.
I think that's a good point. I mean, you said you loved it. I think, honestly, I think this is a spot, a lot of stories that, if we were going to be honest about it, I mean, I liked getting high.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the feeling of it. I liked doing it. I liked doing it more than I liked playing basketball. Like, it was what I did to have fun.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like you, did that thirst for that fun get out of control? Did it ever turn into addiction? Do you think you were ever an addict?
Yeah, I definitely became an addict for years. At that point, at 19, I wasn't fully physically addicted, but it turned into an addiction.
Okay.
In so many levels.
Right.
So many different ways.
They say it's progressive and chronic and fatal and all that good stuff. So when did so at 19 you don't think you're an addict yet, but you're probably on the road.
Yeah.
You're probably going on that path. When did you realize, okay, I have no control, I cannot stop this?
Okay, this is another God moment, but this has to
I like these God moments.
This has to be when I know that I just didn't care anymore.
Okay.
I woke up. I was living with my mom, and I woke up and I had a migraine, and I was so used to taking like lots of pills for anything that I asked my mom for some Tylenol, and she handed me. She goes, all she had was aspirin. So I dumped like 11 of them in my hand and took 11 aspirin. And she was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm used to taking. I got to take that many just to get rid of my headache, you know." So now I start my day at noon with 11 aspirin in me. And me and a friend I was with, we went, got a few pain pills, went and got some alcohol, ended up doing some meth.
Mm-hmm.
And then after all this is in my system, I decide I think I want to go eat a couple boxes of Quercetin.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm out of drugs now, I'm out of money, and the night doesn't seem like it should be over, you know. So I go get a couple boxes of Quercetin, and we go out in the woods. And I take, you know, a box and a half, which is like, I think I took 24 pills of Quercetin, which is way too much cough medicine.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot.
But I take them, and I don't think about everything else that I already had in my system.
Okay.
Like, I wasn't thinking about the 11 aspirin that thinned my blood.
I see.
Earlier that day, I wasn't thinking about the pain pills, which probably thinned my blood. I wasn't thinking about the alcohol, which thinned my blood. Like, my blood is just flowing faster than it should. So when I put all this Quercetin in there, it hit me a lot harder than it should have. And after a while, I'm sitting in this car and I'm numb, completely numb, can't feel anything. My heart's racing, but I can't feel anything. And then finally, I start having this feeling in my toe. It feels like my toe's cramping. And then that cramp slowly goes up my leg until my whole body's cramping. And I know there's something wrong, but I don't really know what's going on. I'm completely out of my mind, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I am coherent enough. I'm like, I need to step out of the vehicle. You know, I need fresh air. I need to stand up something. So I get out of the vehicle and I stand up, and this part may be hard for some people to believe, but I was there, and I wish I could replay it for people. But I look over and I see I see two demons coming at me. They were dark cloaked figures, and they were flying at me as fast as they possibly could. It looked like they were fighting through like an invisible field or something, though. I mean, it looked like they were really, really struggling to get to me. But they were still not moving real fast. Mm-hmm. And when I saw them, something rose up in me and I yelled at them. I said, "You're not killing nobody." And they just vanished. And when they disappeared, I look in front of me and I see these two little tiny lights, and they're floating through the woods coming my direction. And as soon as I saw them, I just like I feel this like real overwhelming sense of peace. And I'm like mesmerized. I can't take my eyes off of them. I don't know what's going on right now.
Right.
But they're floating at me. And when they get close enough that I can start to make up what's going on, I see the form of a body with this light coming out. They were angels. And they had a light that came around them. They looked like almost wings. They didn't actually have wings, but the light that came from them looked like wings. And they got to me, and when they got to me, that light surrounded me. It's like they hugged me. And then I felt that peace come over me completely. And my body rejected all the chemicals that were in it, and it came out the only way it knew how. And I had like 8 pounds of feces in my pants and filled in my shoes. My body just pushed out all the chemicals because it was killing me.
That's wild.
It was. It gets a little crazier. So here I am, totally a mess.
You are a mess.
I don't even know how I'm going to get home because I definitely don't want to get in that car like this.
Right.
But I find my way back to my mom's house. And when I open her door, here I am, a total mess, no pants on because they were ruined. I open the door and my mom's on the couch, and it's like 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, what are you doing awake, Mom? She was like, God woke me up to pray for you. And I was just so overwhelmed. Like, God woke my mother up when I was dying to pray for me. And when she prayed for me, because she listened, she woke up and she was on her face praying for me, that he sent help to save my life. I didn't even register at that moment how serious that was, that she was obedient to pray and God listened,
This is true.
So that moment though, because I didn't care, that night when I was in the shower, I knew that I had almost died, but I didn't care.
You know that for sure.
My plan was, I didn't realize the extent of everything that was going on, but I knew while I was showering and cleaning myself off that I needed to figure out how I was going to get high tomorrow. I had no...
That was a thought that you had.
Yeah, there was this wasn't a concern with me. What just happened didn't matter. What am I going to do tomorrow?
Now that's powerful.
Yeah.
That's a powerful thought. To go through everything you just said, and I'm visualizing this in my head, would have scared me to death, and probably would have been enough for me.
It should have been.
But it should have been. But this is the nature of addiction, though. I mean, we all have different bottoms, different things. Because that's amazing. And so when you have this thought, because obviously to be in the shower, understanding you had that thought then, and to think, okay, this is serious. Was your addiction serious?
Yeah, and even then, it wasn't so much the physical addiction as mental.
So this is more up here.
Yeah, I hadn't yet to get fully addicted physically to anything. I had suffered a little bit of withdrawal, of taking pain pills for 3-4 days, and then you get a little stomach hurt.
Right.
But it wasn't the same. This was all still mental. It was a lifestyle. I just need to take my pain away, and I continued to just cover up the fact that I wasn't doing anything with my life.
Okay.
With drugs, and the next day, if I have to be sober, then I got a plan for my life. And if I have to be sober, then it really makes you think, what am I doing with my life? So now I need to make sure I can stay high all the time on something, so that I don't have to get responsible.
So I think this is a really good point that you're bringing up here, because at this time you're probably a young man, right?
I'm
21, early 20s,
22 years old.
And you should be at this point on some sort of path in life. Well, this is the stigma they put on you, anyways, that you should be. But I think we're still kids at 21, and you felt this pressure, and so you used because you felt. How would I put it? That you're not producing, that you're not being a man, almost, right?
I didn't know any other way to be a man,
know
so
any way.
just kind of...
And I'm sure when you were using the drugs and you're around these people, you had a certain sense of feeling of, I am a man. I do have some power. I do have some control. Yes. Or am I wrong?
I was being productive because I could sell drugs and earn my own cigarettes. I could earn my own habit. And living with your mom, you live with your mom. Who cares?
Yeah, who cares?
But I'm being productive at least enough to take care of my own habit. I'm not weighing down on anyone else other than my mom.
Did you feel like you were only hurting yourself?
I knew that my mom stressed at times, but yeah, I was really I was really only hurting myself.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I thought.
That's what you thought.
That's what I thought. I didn't have any kids at the time.
Right. So really, you only have you to worry about. What would you say to people? Because this is, I think, your experience. No matter whether it was the drugs doing that or whether it was real, no matter what, to you it's real.
Yeah.
And it had a profound effect on your life and the way you see life. What kind of impact did that have on you today?
Today, so the voice of God, I'm just going to say the voice of God speaking to people has produced itself in my life multiple times, and it saved me. The voice of God speaking to my mom for that prayer, the voice of God speaking to me and the pastor's wife in that church that day. Mm-hmm. These weren't the only times where God has spoke to me or God has spoke to people around me. But going through such dramatic experiences with God speaking, it really, really interested me, made me interested in like hearing the voice of God.
Gotcha.
And my life has become just a revolution of waking up. Then I'm going to wake up tomorrow, and what is God going to speak to me? What is He going to ask me to do for others? What can I do to help? And I require His leading so that I do it properly. I don't want to do it on my own. I don't want to do it by myself. Myself is a mess.
Right.
You know, even now, myself is lazy, selfish at times. You know, and if I don't follow the principles that I've learned in the Bible, first and foremost, then I'm not as good of a person as I should be, and I can't be as productive and helpful as I could be.
Absolutely.
I truly believe, though, that God wants to speak to us in very specific ways for people around us and ourselves, primarily for ourselves. And if you can learn to hear the voice of God, and if you can learn what He's asking you to do and you follow it, His voice will get louder, because you'll learn to decipher, because you hear many things in your head.
For sure.
You got your own doubt. You got your own self-pity at times. Your own selfishness still.
A lot going on up there.
There's a lot going on in your mind. If you can decipher what's Him and what's not, then your life, He's good. God is good. I believe this. God is good. So if He's asking you to do something, then you can trust that it's going to lead you where you need to be.
Now, I want to get into all that here, because that's everything you just said is great. That's all good recovered stuff right there. I like the way you just broke down the head. Yeah. That was good. Before we get there, let's at least go into how did the addiction stop? When did it come to a halt? I'm
glad you went there.
Yeah.
This is a lot more important than all my experiences in the addiction, I think.
Okay.
I was living in at this point I was addicted to Suboxone, and I'd been manufacturing meth for 10 years or more.
So you also manufactured?
Yes.
Okay, that's important. So you manufactured, and now you're selling Suboxone?
It helped me get productive if I
could
make it.
Yeah.
Know? So now I feel more productive.
So it's more of that manly thing, you know. I can afford more lavish lifestyle. People
will let me sleep on their couch
because
I have the drugs, and then I don't have to worry about being responsible for myself because I can just keep other people strung out.
That's really good stuff.
That's what happens.
That's exactly what happens.
And I never had a bad heart in it. I didn't, but it was evil.
Sure, yeah, it's a selfish world. Was you was you addicted to the money you're making off the meth, or are you more addicted to that than the using?
I didn't sell it. I didn't. I only, if I sold it, it was just very minimal.
Okay.
I would give it away to the people that let me live in their house, and then I would do the rest. I basically just used it as a means to produce my life, to pay for my way, and to keep me high. But I was more addicted to the manufacturing part of it, to being like the best at it. You think like my stuff's better than everybody's. Everybody says that. Honestly, mine was killing everybody just like everybody else's.
Right.
And it probably wasn't any good anyway. I just thought it was. And it's definitely poison. So anyway, I got really bad. Suboxone was what I thought I needed to get away from that. Yes.
Okay.
Or not even. I wasn't even to get off the meth.
Just get off the meth.
Because I couldn't mentally. Not that the Suboxone is made to get off meth, but I couldn't mentally stay sober. So the Suboxone gave me something to kind of cut it, just so I didn't have to do that.
Okay.
But I became addicted to Suboxone very badly.
What is just why we're on this subject, and you experienced it, and I think for our viewers it might be important to talk about it. Did that work? Your thought process there?
No. Okay, so the Suboxone, I was dealing with the DCS case at one point, and Suboxone kept me from using other things for a point of time.
So that's a win.
Yeah. So, but because I wasn't really physically addicted to opiates to begin with, it only hurt me in the end.
Gotcha.
Now, I don't know if I should have an opinion for people that were heroin addicts, but if there's another option other than Suboxone or methadone, I'm definitely down for that, and I believe I can pray for you and God will heal you.
Okay.
But I would rather see somebody going to the methadone clinic than going and scoring heroin any day of the week.
This is true. It's such a fine line there.
There is.
You're right.
So, and there's definitely no condemnation in however you have to go and get sober, man. I'm proud of you. You know?
Absolutely, man. Good stuff. I think you broke that down pretty well.
I hope you guys can understand
Yeah.
how I feel about that. Some people I really love have gotten off drugs using methadone or Suboxone.
Okay.
And I've seen it work. So
And I have too.
So there's but I've seen it abused as
More
a lifestyle.
times.
I also know people that are going to be on it for the rest of their life.
Yes.
But they function. It's almost like a functioning alcoholic. They just have to have it to function, but they work and they're productive.
And at the end of the day, it's still better.
I am not. It is definitely better than running around scoring dope.
No matter how you look at it.
But I got to this point where I was hooked on everything. But my biggest problem was I was in a relationship where the woman didn't care about me. I didn't even care about her, really.
Right.
But I felt responsible for her.
Okay.
And it was just codependency, and I didn't understand what it was at the time. But she had continuously left me for other people just for a night or whatever. But it was just like, what am I doing? But I couldn't pull myself away. I didn't have it in me. I don't know why. Like, it was a responsibility I felt. So one night she took off, and I just prayed. I said, God, I don't know how to leave this situation.
So even during you're making meth, you're taking Suboxone, you're in a codependency relationship, but you still will rely on your faith and
God
pray.
never quit speaking to me from the time I was a little boy.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
I think that's good to point out.
Yeah, sometimes like he gets quieter when you ignore him, but when he needs to speak, you'll hear him.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah.
But at this moment, this is a prayer I suggest to anybody. If you're in addiction, this works. I promise you it'll work. It's like the method how to get sober, and anyone can do it, and it'll work. I promise. You have to believe it though. You have to mean it. But the prayer was, God, I can't do this on my own. I can't leave her, even though I should. I can't get off the drugs. I don't know how to do this anymore. I can't do it, but I give you permission to do whatever it takes in my life to get me away from this mess.
Oh, you never know what might happen after a prayer like that.
You won't. But God is good.
God is good.
God is good, and He will do whatever it takes to fix you.
Do you know I had a prayer like that?
You had to have.
I did. I really did.
I promise you, it is the method to get sober. Give God the option to take it from you.
And I did, and it happened.
So this is sort of my story. Tell me your story.
Well, mine. I'll be quick. So mine was between December 25th and December 29th. And I know this because of Christmas and my birthday. Yeah. It was in between one of those 4 days because I was messed up. Yeah. But I knew my addiction was far out of control. I didn't know how many burglaries. I cut off my house arrest bracelet. I'm on the run from the law. Like, it is bad. It is bad. And I remember one night, man, my son, he comes over, he's at my house. And at this time, he's like 6 years old, and he liked to stay up till midnight. And just because it made me feel like a man. If he could stay up till midnight with Dad, he felt good, right? Well, this particular night, he fell asleep about 12:05. And he's over here by a window, about like that one. And it was a full moon that night, and I turned off all the lights, and I'm about to go to bed, and I just kind of look over at him, and I see the moonlight coming through the window, and he's just sitting there kind of glowing in the light, you know? Yeah. And I just got this feeling over me, and I just kind of walk over there as calmly as I can. I'm going to try to say this without crying. And I get down on my knees, and I put my head on his chest, and I just start praying. And I prayed. Man, I prayed for God to take it away. I didn't care what happened, how it happened. And then I started to apologize profusely to my son. And he never woke up. Yeah. And I finally get up after an intense moment. And I go to the bedroom, and there's my girlfriend at the time, and I kind of just collapsed. And it was about 2 months later, my entire life changed.
Yeah.
It was real.
Yeah, mine was about 30 days later.
Yeah, see?
He got me. And
Yeah.
it's crazy. But that prayer, I promise, if you mean it when you say it, I don't see it work every time.
Every time.
Every time.
We're sitting here living proof.
Yeah. Yeah, and there will be more that are going to try this and be able to speak to us later and be like, hey, man, we did that. And, like, look at me. Here's a year later. I've been sober
Wouldn't that
for a
be
year.
cool to get some feedback
It's going to
like
happen.
that? Yes.
It's going to happen. Like, I know it will.
Uh-huh.
Because it works.
Yes.
Giving God control of your life, honest, and he'll wait for you. He'll wait for you to tell him he can do whatever it takes. He wants that. Because then he gets all the credit.
Yes.
You can't just be like, oh, I fixed it myself. Because there are people that get sober on their own using programs, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But if you give him control, he'll use it, and then you have a testimony. You have a way of giving him credit.
And he was absolutely the start of mine.
Yeah.
And what happened to you?
So after I said that prayer,
Yeah.
I was in prison, or I was on my way to prison 30 days later.
And what'd you do?
Okay. When my girl came back that night, my daughter's mother, I said, you're not drinking again or I'm leaving. I said, that's it, because she was drinking and took off. And I said, I don't care. We're not having alcohol. It's not going to happen, or it'll be over. I'm done. And we had some boxing here and there, and we basically stayed away from alcohol for 2 weeks or so. But then we got to the point where she couldn't be sober. And I know what happens when she drank, but she said if I didn't get her some drugs, she was going to get a bottle. And I'm mad because I know what's going to happen. And I'm like, and I'm mad at myself for being there, confused at why I am. But I just said, you know what? I'll get you a buzz. So I walk like 8 miles into town with plans to rob a pharmacy to get her drugs, because on pain pills she won't leave. And I'm mad. And on the way there, like I said, I hear God speaks to me in different ways. And on the way there, I just had peace hit me. Knowing that I'm going to rob this pharmacy, this isn't like me. Like, I don't do that kind of thing, you know. But I feel God tell me, I hear God tell me in my spirit that it's okay. This is what it's going to take to change your life. You're going to go to jail. You know, you're going to go to prison for this, but it will get you away from her.
Okay.
And while you're locked up, she'll leave. And then you can just, you know, it'll be a clean break, and you'll be able to get sober while you're gone. And I had peace about it. It's the only way I actually could have done it was I was calm. I shouldn't have been.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of people, like, I'm not saying God told me to rob that pharmacy. He didn't.
Right.
He knew I was planning it. And he was just
really
sure that he had plans also.
Okay.
Is all it was. He had plans also.
Uh-huh.
And he just let me know, like, you know, I got you.
Gotcha.
Anyway, so I got arrested for robbing that pharmacy a few weeks later.
Did you like use a gun? Did you?
No.
Like, how'd you do this?
I didn't, and I almost hate sharing how I did it. I don't want people to take this part of my story and try to use it. But I went in there with gloves on and a mask, and there was an older lady getting her medicine, and it was a small little tiny pharmacy, and I walked in with my hands up like this and a mask on, and I said, I'm not going to hurt anybody. I don't have a weapon, nothing. I said, but somebody kidnapped my wife and kids and told me they were going to kill him if I didn't get him the biggest bottle of painkillers you had. So after talking to him for a few minutes, they gave me a bottle of painkillers and some cash out of the register, and I took off running.
Gotcha.
I don't have I'm not a violent person. I don't want to hurt. I don't want to scare people. Never have. I don't even know. I don't know where the idea came from. It just happened.
Just happened.
Happened.
And addiction's like that, man. Just that world. It's so crazy how blind we are to certain things. I've heard you talk about, you know, you didn't know or things like that sometimes. But how'd you get caught? Because you got away with it initially, right?
Yeah, I got away with it altogether.
Altogether.
They didn't have any physical evidence. They didn't know.
Okay.
So me and my mom have always been really close, and I'd tell her everything, even things she didn't want to hear. I don't know why. I was always real open with her, and still am. I told her like 2 weeks after it happened, and it really stressed her out. Like, she prayed, she asked God, what am I supposed to do? And she talked to a friend of hers, and they're like, he's crying for help. He wouldn't have told you. And he didn't know the relationship I had with my mom, but my mom's like, he is. This is a cry for help. I can't let my son die because I refuse to do something. So she called the police on me. And
wow.
My mom wore a wire on me, and got me to admit to doing it on the wire, and I was arrested. And it was probably one of the hardest things she's ever had to do, and she regretted it. Like, she went in and told him, my son robbed this pharmacy. I would like to work with you to get him to be held responsible for it, but I want to do it in a way that he goes to rehab, not jail. Uh-huh. And immediately they said, you're going to be an accomplice if you don't wear a wire.
Wow. So
they, like, her trying to help just made it harder on her. She had to go through a lot just because of what I did.
And this is where I think sometimes as addicts, like we said earlier, we truly believe we're only hurting ourselves, but here you are now, and your mom's in this heck of a predicament to save her son's life, because ultimately your choices were affecting her too, And I think now, today, you understand that fully.
Yeah. I didn't. I hid from my family in my addiction. Like, my family didn't see me very rarely, unless I really needed something, even if it was $5 or something. I didn't spend much time around my family because I didn't want them to see that. But me not being around, it was probably harder on, just as hard as if I was.
Just as hard, yeah.
Like, they didn't know where I was. They didn't know if I was alive.
Ever. Didn't know if you're going to get that phone call that you're dead.
Yeah.
And here you are thinking you're only affecting yourself.
Yeah.
And that's one of those blind things, like I was talking about, that we don't understand we're doing. But once you become awake, you do. And I know that this actually sent you to prison, and this seems to be where your life truly begins to change.
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah,
what was it about prison and this environment, and how did this help you change?
Okay.
Permanently.
Okay, so it started in county jail about 3 months in.
Okay.
And I got to a point, I got sentenced in Monroe County. The whole time I was in Monroe County, I just played poker, didn't really follow the rules. I didn't cause a bunch of trouble, but I wasn't thinking about getting better. I was actually just thinking about how can I get out of this.
Right.
But I got sentenced, and after I got sentenced, I knew I was going to prison, and I got transferred to Owen County. When I got transferred to Owen County, before I got put in a block, I just prayed. I said, God, put me somewhere where I can just get my head right, And I got put in a block with people I went to high school with, and just people I knew, and so it'd be really calm, like no struggles, didn't have to come in the block and try to fit in or make sure I got along with everybody because I already knew the people. Mm-hmm. But I'm sleeping on a cot on the floor because there's like 9 of us in this 8-man cell. And this is where I really changed this moment.
Okay.
And I'm laying there and I have a vision. I fell asleep for 20 seconds, had a dream, but it was like a vision. I was awake. I wasn't supposed to be asleep. Right. It just disappeared for a second. And I saw this wolf, or it was a coyote. It was like a coy dog, and he was caught in a trap. He had his foot caught in a trap, and in the dream I went up to him I tried to help him out of the trap, but he snapped at me. He didn't want to do. He didn't know what I was doing, and he just knew his foot hurt, and I was coming at him. He was protecting himself.
Okay.
So I said, man, how can I get this dog out of this trap? I'm like, oh, I got it. So I grab a blanket and I wrap the dog in a blanket real quick so he can't bite me, a real thick blanket, and then I get his foot out of the trap and I let him go. I wake up and God says, you're that dog, and this blanket is the prison sentence.
Okay.
And I have to do this right now to get you away from the things that were destroying you.
Absolutely. And
I realized I got full again, like that moment, like just full of God, I guess, the Spirit. Just overwhelming sense of God still loves me and He has a plan for me, and all just through that one little dream.
I had an experience a lot like that in the county jail, and I like to try to draw similarities sometimes.
Yeah.
You said you feel full, but I remember I was drinking. For me, it wasn't a dream. I was awake,
Yeah.
and I'm sitting there and I'm drinking Keefy coffee. You remember the Keefy?
Yeah.
The yellow bag. And I'm the only one up in the morning. And this is probably 5 or 6 months in. And I realized at this point I'm trying to change my life. I didn't really know how I was going to do it. But I was sitting there, I was drinking my coffee, I'm watching this country television, and I kind of in my mind, I'm going back to drinking coffee with my mom on the front porch.
Yeah.
And you said you felt full. I had this overwhelming sense of joy just destroy me. And it was the first time that I had felt that in years. And I knew whatever that was, that I wanted that. That feeling was something that I wanted to hold on to. And I think from that day forward is when I knew I was okay.
Yeah.
You know? And I kind of feel like you're explaining the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my moment where I didn't care about the prison sentence anymore.
No, I accepted it.
I liked it.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I was.
You had a chance
good.
to change, to get your mind right, get your relationship right with God.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what did you do with this opportunity?
So for a month I read the Bible. Longer than a month, but particularly the rest of the time I was in Owen County Jail. And this is another miraculous thing. It was awesome. That happened. I got a Bible, and I would dream about Matthew chapter 4 and 5 and 6. It's just the weirdest thing ever.
What do they state?
Well, I would just so one day I would dream like Matthew 4, 5, and 6.
Okay,
In my dream I would be reading these chapters.
Okay.
I would wake up and that would be exactly where I would read it, and I would read it again in real life.
Okay.
And then I'd go back to sleep because we're in county sleep a lot. I'd dream again about the next 3 chapters. So I read it twice, once in my sleep and once in real life. It was like the most bizarre thing, and it felt like every word I read was alive because it was like deja vu. Everything I was reading was something I just read. It was so amazing.
Do you think those words seem to pop so much and seem so alive now because you had this that feeling we were just talking about, that real moment? So I think from that moment forward, I think things do feel more alive because I had never read a day in my life, John.
Yeah.
And once this happened, I started to read, and I read the Bible. I read the New Testament twice. And I remember I'd read things and it was like, it would hit me different. Like I was absorbing this stuff, man. Mm-hmm. Like it was changing me. And I feel like maybe it was you too,
Yeah, it completely transformed my mind.
Mm-hmm.
For that. So that next month or two of just reading the Bible, and that whole experience, and from the dream about the wolf to reading through the New Testament probably twice in that couple month period, completely changed who I was. By the time I got to prison, 3 months after that dream, I was completely stable in my walk with God. And that's when you met me.
That's when I met you.
Like I'm very, very calm.
Uh-huh.
I don't care what anyone in here thinks about me. I'm going to be exactly what God is telling me to be.
And I can testify to your walk because I've seen it. I know in my own journey, there wasn't a lot of people in there I really, truly believed in, but you were one of those people.
And you too.
Yeah, and that's why you're sitting here today.
Yeah.
And I mean, as a Christian man, I believe in you and your walk for sure. And I love hearing about it. And I know once you got to Branchville, and this is where our story kind of kicks in a little bit, what I found, and I don't want to tell your own story, but your music was what really stood out to me.
Okay. So I've been singing, we haven't even brought this up yet, but I've been playing music, leading worship off and on my whole life. Music has always been a passion. Both my parents played music, so it just kind of was in the family. So whenever, the coolest thing about the prison we went to, we ended up in a C dorm. It was a therapeutic dorm, and we had 2 guitars in the dorm, so every night I could just go in there and play songs and write music. And I spent literally 2 years of my prison sentence just playing music and writing music and getting, sharpening up, I guess, on the gift that God had given me in that area. And in the meantime, ministering to the people in there with it, which is awesome because as I'm learning, people are getting blessed by it too. So music is definitely a passion. and it still is. I still play music. Of course, I can't.
I think passion is something I think we got to find. Like yours is music, mine's softball. You know, I got to have softball.
That's
it's
awesome.
something that brings me alive. You know, now I wish I could sing and play the guitar like you do because you're awesome, but I can't. But I do have a passion, and that passion keeps me pushing forward. Earlier, you were really breaking down the mind really well, especially with Christian principles, and you were talking about how to discern what's good and what's not. You know, what principles would you refer to? Which ones do you believe are the most powerful to recovery in your walk with God?
Okay, so in Proverbs, I believe it's 4, verse 5 and 6, it says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not upon thine own understanding." And that scripture, I live off that. And it keeps me from wanting to argue with people over doctrine or over different ways of being rehabilitated. Or
Sure.
I don't have to, normally, I don't feel the need to prove what I believe to anyone unless they ask.
Right.
And I definitely want to share my faith, but if you believe differently than me, then I don't have to put you down because of it. Mm-hmm. If I start pretending to know everything, then I'm not listening to that scripture. Like to trust in the Lord and lean not upon my own understanding. So God will give you knowledge and God will give you faith in different things. But when you use it against people, it can be very harmful. And I believe that that's one of my biggest principles I live by. I try to. And it keeps me at peace. You know, I trust in Him.
Yeah,
Trust
you
in
do a
God.
great job at that. I've never felt indifferent around you ever. We've had a lot of intense conversations, you and I have.
Yeah.
Why is it that, why do you feel, in your own words, do you feel this is what works so well for you? Because a lot of people, they do 12 steps or they do in, AA, some do exercise. I'm a big exercise guy. But why is it that this has transformed you?
Okay. So this could be offensive to people in programs.
That's
but
all
I'm
right.
just gonna.
This is
for
your
me,
story.
This is my life.
This is your story.
God is. I believe I was healed while I was in county jail.
Mm-hmm.
The story I was just telling you about. I believe that my mind was completely restored.
You think I was healed in that Keefy Coffee story?
I do.
I think so too.
I do.
Yeah.
Like in the months to follow, like the reading and just the time with God.
Right.
I believe you were healed. So and what I mean by that is I don't live by a program. For me, if I had to live by a program because of my addiction, then I'm still living in my addiction. I am just simply doing everything I can to stay away from it. My lifestyle, I don't think about my addiction. I don't have to do anything I don't have to have a method. I don't have to have 12 steps, and I love the 12 steps. They're biblical principles. I'm not bashing them. But I don't have to go to a meeting every week on the dot for me to stay sober. I'm no longer ran in any means whatsoever by drugs. And I believe if you get stuck in the same whatever, and you have to do this one thing to stay sober, then you still don't have freedom yet. You know, there has to be freedom. If I want to go on vacation and climb the Rockies for 3 months and never talk to anybody for 3 months, I should be able to do that without having to attend a meeting or, having my group. Because I'm okay, I'm free. If I'm going to a group, it's so that I can be a blessing to someone else.
Yeah.
If I'm going to my meeting regularly, it's because there's other people that need me.
Uh-huh.
They need to know what God has done in me.
Uh-huh.
And that's awesome. I don't think anybody should quit their meetings, but stop feeling like it's your crutch to stay sober. But stop. You should start feeling like this is my chance to get back. Mm-hmm. If you're going to continue to go to meetings, don't let it run your life. You run it. It's just I can't, and that's why I don't do a program like ROL consistently.
Right.
Because I just don't feel the draw to it.
Right.
But I do go to church. And again, it's a biblical principle. The Bible says not to forsake the fellowship.
Correct.
So if you don't fellowship with others, but that's life. That isn't
It
just
is life.
that isn't just overcoming my addiction. That's if you don't fellowship with fellow believers and fellow people that are like you, then you will slowly get depressed and go downhill. Even if you were never an addict, you will start eating too much, or you'll start feeding the emptiness with something. So I still go to church, and a lot of people would call that my program.
They would. I was going to go there, so
and that's
you're
fine.
Going there yourself.
But so my program, I guess, has a lot of freedom in it, and I can change it at any given point. There isn't anything in my life. My family is there, but nothing that I do. My job can change if it needed to. I could switch churches. I could quit hanging out with the people I'm hanging out with right now, wherever God leads me, and it won't affect who I am now. I'm not going to start using again.
Gotcha.
So I hate to call it a program. I have a program though.
Yeah.
I have my own.
Something that you do.
But it gives me freedom.
It does. So you didn't, from what I'm hearing then, so something that I think a lot of people fear is once an addict, always an addict. Yeah. And I'm going to bring this up because I remember back in like 2008, I asked somebody who had like 8 years clean. I was like, man, does it ever get any better? And he looked at me and said, man, not really. And I thought, well, why am I doing this then,
Rather die now.
Yeah, I might as well just die now. So, I mean, you talk about freedom, so obviously once an addict, always an addict. Do you believe that?
No. And let me explain why. I have no desire. I'm not an addict whatsoever. Like right now, and a lot of people be like, oh, blasphemy. Right. I'm not. I don't. I am consistently around people using. It's part of my job. Mm-hmm. People in my family are on drugs. Like I'm consistently every day around this. It doesn't bother me in the least. Mm-hmm. I don't care. I see it. I've seen 5 pounds of meth. Mm-hmm. Since I've been sober. It didn't bother me. I was just like, man, you're dumb.
Right.
And the guy's in prison for 5 pounds of meth right now.
Selling it.
But I did get to tell him, whenever you get caught with that, start praying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, because I knew he was going to get in trouble. We all do at some point. But there was a point where I took some pain medication, like since I've been sober, for pain. And the first day.
This is a good story.
The first day, it was fine. It was a very small dose. But I took it 2 days in a row. Third day I woke up and I needed it to go to work. I wasn't in pain, but I didn't have the energy. I needed it. Mm-hmm. And I immediately, like, because I don't have that addictive personality anymore.
You was aware of
but my body is now wanting, and my mind and my body are now wanting to become an addict. Like I could still very easily have become an addict again. Like, just because I'm sober for 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or however long doesn't mean that I can't get back in it. So there is a once an addict, always an addict. Everybody's an addict. You give anybody pain pills long enough, they're hooked. I don't care who you are. You can't help it. You're physically hooked. You give them enough of them, and they're going to be mentally wanting to party with them. I don't care who you are. Like, I've never seen anybody that is, like, can be numb to that, But I have to be aware of what I put in my system. Like, I am not, like, I felt myself becoming addicted again. And I'm like, oh, no, because I know where that leads.
Right.
So I'm like, what can I do to fix this? Because now it's going to be available. Now I want it. So I am now literally sort of addicted again. Mm-hmm. Like immediately, physically addicted to these narcotics.
So this is a relapse.
Yeah, it's a relapse. So I got friends that live out of state. I literally went to the mountains for 2 weeks. Like I quit my job. I left my family behind and I went to the mountains for 2 weeks. Long enough, I went up there and I cleared my head, got away from any possibility of being able to find anything because I don't want that no more.
What would you say the difference between isolation and solitude is?
Isolation and solitude.
Because, some people say, you're running away from your problems, which obviously it worked for you. I mean, this worked for you. You're clean now because you did that.
No, I wasn't running. Okay, so isolation and solitude. This is, like, God's been speaking to me about this particular, or something very similar. Okay, so anything you do, you can change churches. You can start doing a new program. you can basically run away from anything you choose. But God is never, ever going to have you leave something from fear of it. What he will do, he will show you, he will shine a light on a great purpose somewhere else and lead you somewhere else in love. Like you will see the light, you will see a vision of why you're leaving. Not, I don't like this anymore, I don't like the people.
Mm-hmm.
Because God isn't going to, he's no respecter of persons. You can't be sitting in a meeting and be like, all these people suck. Like, no, your attitude sucks now.
Right.
All these people need you.
Yes.
And God's not going to tell you that these people suck.
Yeah.
Do you?
I
Okay,
see what you're saying.
So isolation versus solitude. Being isolated is making that choice out of fear. I don't want to be around people. I don't need to be around people. People suck. I'm going to isolate myself. I definitely don't want to be around recovery people. Like, I'm just going to pull myself away from everybody because I don't have the energy to do it after work, whatever. Fear.
Right.
Fear.
Sure.
Solitude, however, is more like Jesus going into the wilderness and fasting. Like, you go and you find your solitude. You find your time alone with God. You got to have your alone time, your own peace. And there's times, so God will lead you somewhere to prosper you. And if you are following the blessings of God, then you're good. If you're running from an enemy that God is stronger than you're not. And I believe that's the difference between isolation and solitude. I hope I explained that well.
You did well. And something I've noticed here over the interviews I've done a few now, this period of solitude, it seems to be extremely important in people's recovery. And it comes in different ways. I think you had two there. I mean, because you had the one in county jail, and now going to the mountains. Both times you needed to find yourself again. Yeah. And you did by putting yourself in solitude, not isolation. I think, like you said, isolation it's a bad attitude. You do it almost because you're forced to. Your first 3 months in jail was isolation. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great example of it. I'm just playing cards. I'm trying to figure out how to get out of here. You're isolated. Yeah. Solitude is very productive and creates fruits in your life.
Definitely.
So here you are today. Now, how many years clean do you have since that relapse?
I don't. So I consider myself 7 years clean.
Sure. Okay, I like it.
Now, a lot of people are like, no, you took pain pills. No, I didn't. Yeah, I did. Yeah. But I didn't do it to go party. I did it for a legitimate reason. And when I noticed, wait a minute, this isn't good for me. Immediately, I knew it right away. Like, I'm aware of this. No, it's not like I went on a bender. And even if I did, like, my sobriety time started 7 years ago. I've been completely different from 7 years ago. 7 years on December 5th of 2012. Yeah. So
I think this is important. I want to say this because I think there's no right or wrong way to recover in your beliefs and what you say is true about you is true about you. And if you say, I've been clean since December 5th of 2012, you have.
See, I call it something different. I have not been clean because of that.
Okay, so what do you call it?
I've been living a sober lifestyle for 7 years now.
Okay.
And it's been a very consistent sober lifestyle. My mind has been right for 7 years. My mind was right even when I took those medications. Because if my mind wasn't right, then I wouldn't have quit.
Now, so with you, I think that's great. I think what you just said was awesome. A sober lifestyle. Yeah. Now, if you wouldn't have had that attitude that I'm living a sober lifestyle, when you had that relapse, because people have that relapse and they instantly think, oh my gosh, I screwed up, I'm done.
Start all over.
I have to start all over. I just threw away 5 years of sobriety, yada, yada, yada. And then they go back and they kill themselves. Yeah. You, though, I think this is great. If you tell yourself and you believe, hey, I'm living a sober lifestyle, I messed up, but man, you got right back on it.
Yeah. So AA says this, and NA, relapse is part of recovery.
Yeah, I've heard
That's what
before.
they say. Yeah. And, honestly, it's kind of what I'm saying. I had a moment where I could have jumped on the wagon and started getting high again.
Fork in the road.
That's really what I think the big book people meant when they were saying relapse is part of recovery. Yeah. They're like, that doesn't mean that you aren't recovered still. But I think a lot of people have really failed to highlight that. Yeah. Oh, man, I've still been sober for 7 years. You know what happens? I have a broken foot when I was a kid. My foot's healed, but if it gets really cold, I can still feel like a real small twinge of that pain.
Yeah.
Right? And that's my addiction. Like I'm good. I'm really good. But if I got cold enough, like I might feel a little twinge of pain, you know, and that was my little twinge of pain. Like, oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but that doesn't mean my foot's still broken. Like my foot's still been healed. The whole time it was healed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and unless I'm going to go slam it with a hammer and, you know, which would be the full-blown relapse, let me just re-break it.
Right.
Then my foot's still walking healed, you know.
Yeah. Great analogy. I think you broke that down great.
Well, I broke my foot too, so.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're speaking from experience.
Yeah, speaking from experience.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, are there those echoes of your addiction throughout your life? Yeah, they have to be. God reminds you of your time in Egypt because you can help pull people out of Egypt.
Yeah.
And if you've got 7 years clean, then you should be helping people get out of Egypt.
So what is the main differences of your life today than they were just 8 years ago?
Productivity, for one.
Mm-hmm.
I work consistently. And,
And this time you're not making meth.
Not making meth. Not doing anything with drugs. I'm married. I'm happy. I got a wife I love and I'm happy with. I got kids that I love, you know, and I'm happy with. And they can be handfuls at times. And they go through their own struggles. I mean, especially, you know, they're getting older. And, you know, but it's my job to, like, just love them. And even if I argue with them or have to get onto them or they get onto me, like, I have to allow them to go through their own life. And that's probably one of the harder things to watch is other people grow up.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. I'm watching my son do it now.
Yeah, watching people grow up. But so my life right now, it's all about, like, so first and foremost, God and hearing his voice and just doing whatever he's asking, you know. And when I first really got, first got in tune with what I felt God was doing with me, it was God first. Like, and people prioritize things. They're like, God, family, you know, church and work or whatever order they put it in. Recently, God has been showing me that, like, yeah, he's first, but he is family.
Yes.
You know, God is first. You put him first in everything. But if you put him first, that means your family's right there with him. God is never going to ask me to do anything that would be inappropriate to my family.
Right.
He's only going to help. He's going to help me be better for them.
Absolutely.
And he's going to help them in ways I can't. And I will never have to choose between God and my wife and kids. He will always make a way for them because they're part of me. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
That's great.
But when I first really gave it all to God, I'm like, I don't care what you say. I'm going with God, and you can stay here if you want. Mm-hmm. And it really hurt my wife's feelings. I didn't know how to bring her into where God is, you know? Mm-hmm. And it's taken a lot of maturity to be like, oh yeah, okay, so, you know, I need you to know that God cares about how you feel more than you know. You know? Right. And nothing he will ever tell me to do is going to harm you, you know?
Right.
And
I like how you've kind of grown and progressed.
Yeah, it's just and putting God first is still priority. But God brings.
But it's the byproduct of that is you do have your family and you God love. You're connected. Everything's good. Your attitude's great. You're happy.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think it should ever cause stress.
No. And that's, you know, that's one I don't really stress. No. It's irritating to some people how just calm I am. I don't care. You know, it doesn't. You know, worse things could happen to me. I'm just good to go.
So what impact do you hope sitting here tonight has on our viewers?
Well, I think there's a couple points. People can get whatever they want from it, but there's two main points that I believe that my story shows and that I really hope that people have heard. And one of them is the voice of God is probably one of the most important things that you can do is learn how to hear what God is telling you. Mm-hmm. He'll speak to you personally or through other people or through his word primarily. But so hearing God and following what God is asking you to do is awesome because you'll learn that you can trust him when you do it because things, you know, you just have peace. So that's one thing I want people to learn from my story. Just listen to God. And if you can't hear him, ask. You know, pray. You can't really hear God if you don't ask him. Like he will speak to you if you ask him to. I promise you. And I think we hit on we hit on something else. Acceptance earlier. So if you have it within you, you know, if it's really like in your heart for sobriety, I believe that there's people that are going to watch this, and there's people watching your program in general that have ministries in their heart. And one of the biggest issues I had growing up wasn't so much that I didn't have a bad upbringing. It was great.
Right.
The reason I was lost as a young adult, you know, I didn't have these things. Like, people in that position need help. They need a way out. They need hope. There needs to be resources. Mm-hmm. And I can be that resource for people. You can be that resource. Yeah. People watching can be that resource.
Absolutely.
So please just be that resource. Pick a guy up for work every day. Who cares? Like, I had people do that for me, and it changed my life. Mm-hmm. Like, even if it inconveniences you, they don't have hope without you. You know, somebody has to give them hope. And if God can't do that through you, then he'll find somebody else, but you're losing a blessing.
And you have to be free, like you said earlier, to be able to do something like that.
Yeah.
You know, you got to be free and strong in your own faith and your own walk to be able to get into the trenches with these people and help them and give them hope. And I think you do have that freedom. And I could sit here and talk with you all night long, man.
Yeah.
Like, I think you have great points. I love talking with you. Is there anything else that you can think of that you want to get out there before we close this down? I'm going to just share something real quick.
So hearing from God. Okay, now some of you may not believe this, and that's okay. Just leave it out. It's who I am. I believe God told me about something about someone that's going to be listening, and I just want to share that so that they know.
Sure.
I believe that there's a widow that's going to watch, somebody that's lost their husband, and I believe he was a man of God. And you have a son, probably late teens, maybe 19, 20 years old even, and he's struggling. And but he was raised right, but you don't know what to do with him. And I believe God's telling me right now that he's going to be okay, that you can trust him. I just saw you on a couch wearing a blue shirt and watching this video, and God's going to impart like a faith in you for him, because he loves him. He's heard your prayers. Anyway, that's it.
Good stuff, man. And if that happens,
please share.
Share.
Please share.
Make sure you share, because if something like that happens, it needs to be shared.
Yeah.
Guys, great story here. I've known John now for about 6 or 7 years. And like he said, grew up great, had a good upbringing. So did I. And this is another way of showing the different ways that we become addicted, and also different avenues of recovery, because John had to have a good 2 periods of solitude. He has a good outlook on life, and call it a lifestyle, a sober lifestyle. He even had a relapse and still made it. But you can tell that his faith gets him through. It has for a long time. And I fully believe in you, in your faith, and the way you walk. And guys, if you have any questions, if you want to get a hold of John, you can on
Facebook,
John Anderson. All right. And remember, shame, it can only thrive in secrecy. And the moment you speak aloud upon it, it will lose its power.
Amen.
Thank you.